Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Jason Stark. I'm the director of the Describe and Caption Media program. We are thrilled to be hosting this webinar for the Video Description Research and Development Center. Before we begin, I'd like to give you a brief overview of the webinar series and cover a few details about today's presentation. This webinar is the third in a series of 4 webinars. Archived versions of the first 2 webinars are available at webinars.dcmp.org, and that is the same web address that you use to register. Webinars present unique accessibility challenges, both for attendees and presenters. After reviewing the commercially available platforms, we learned that there simply is no fully accessible platform that supports all of the features used in high-quality interactive webinars. Although several platforms do provide some level of accessibility, even the act of simply installing the required software contains barriers. As such, the DCMP is leveraging several different technology pieces in order to create a more accessible experience. Most notable is the fact that we are simulcasting the webinar to participants via video streaming, thus eliminating the need to install any webinar software. For today's session, we will be showing several pre-recorded technology demonstrations. However, all presenters will be available for questions after each segment. Questions may be submitted via the moderated chat box on the web page or may be emailed to webinars@dcmp.org. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Josh Mealy, Director of the Video Description Research and Development Center. Josh?
Hi, thanks so much, Jason. And it is really just, this webinar series has been going for, this is the third, as you said, and it's just, it's getting better and better. So we're doing, today, as Jason pointed out, we're going to be talking about UDescribe and how it works and what you can do to contribute descriptions to YouTube videos. But I'm going to go over a little bit of background before I talk too much about the development of UDescribe. First, I want to talk about sort of why and who are the folks that are going to be using UDescribe. Really, we feel it's important to provide access and description for videos that are available on YouTube because there's an important aspect of education as well as shared culture that goes on. So we're doing this so that blind people can share in the educational and cultural opportunities that are being hosted as a result of YouTube videos. So we really want to be able to add descriptions to YouTube videos. Of course, there's no facility for that in YouTube itself. So we've spent a lot of really careful effort to create a set of tools that will allow you, as teachers, family, and friends of blind people, to add descriptions to YouTube videos without changing the original YouTube video at all. The people who will benefit from that are blind people everywhere. All over the world, there are blind people who will want to have access to the descriptions that are created by people like you attending this webinar. When you create a description for your friend or your student, those descriptions aren't just given to your friend or your student. Those are then available for everyone who wants to use them. So I'm going to now talk about how UDescribe works. And I'm showing a graphic here, a graphical representation of sort of the structure of UDescribe. UDescribe is basically a website that you go to access YouTube videos and to add descriptions of those videos. And another user, a blind user, can also go to the UDescribe website to listen to the descriptions that have been added by other folks. So the graphic is basically, you've got the UDescribe at the top, and then connected to it down below on one side is YouTube that sends video to you directly from YouTube It doesn't get changed or modified by UDescribe. And then also UDescribe is communicating with a repository that we've also developed, a cloud-based place to keep all of your descriptions and information about those descriptions that tell the website which video they belong to and when to play them. So this is basically how it works, and it's really cool because basically we don't need to modify or redistribute anybody's copyrighted material. All we're doing is allowing people to record descriptions, and then when somebody wants description with that video, the system plays it back with the video at the right time. So there are a couple of interesting points about the way we're doing this, and I want to talk first about inline description. For those of you who are familiar with audio description and how it works, if you've seen any description on TV or in movies or possibly rented described content, then you know that basically description is generally inserted in between the dialogue pieces or the important audio, and it's got to be very careful not to step on anything that's happening that's important in the audio stream. So that's called inline description, and it is the way all professional description is currently done, and it's extremely challenging both to find enough time in between dialogue to add the description of the stuff that needs to be talked about, as well as to write and voice all of that description and edit it into the right places in the video. So this is called inline description, and I'm going to contrast it next with what UDescribe uses, which is called extended description. So extended description is where the video actually pauses for the playback of the video description and then resumes after it's done. And the thing about this is that it makes it a lot easier to insert description, especially when there's not enough space or when you want to talk about a little bit more than there's space for. Like if you want to describe a little bit more than would normally be described, which is particularly important for educational stuff, educational materials. So, and finally, the use of extended description makes it much easier for the amateur describer, which we all are, or most of us are. There might be one or two professional describers listening to this webinar, but most of us are learning how to do this. And rather than trying to carefully script things out and make sure that it's in the right time slot, it's really very helpful to just pause the video and say what you need to describe, and then the video resumes again. So that's how the descriptions that you'll be recording with UDescribe work as extended descriptions. Finally, I just want to say, warning. We are this website is a construction zone. We are UDescribe is a work in progress. We're extremely proud of what we've done so far. However, we have a number of things left to implement. We're ready now to let the public start using it to provide access for their students and to describe fun, interesting videos that everybody is talking about. But we are constantly changing the website in order to provide constant improvement for our users. And as you use it, as you play with it, and as you use it to create descriptions for, it's really important to remember that we can use your feedback and we can also use your patience. So I'm going to hand it back over for questions. I think that there are probably some questions that have come up while I've been talking, and I'm happy to take those now.
Hey, Josh, this is Jason. No questions posed as of yet, so why don't we go ahead and proceed on with Rick Boggs.
Hello. I don't know if I still hear it. Well, all right. That's awesome, Josh. It's cool to watch this technology roll out and to imagine how much more description there's going to be available for us because of the new technology, the multiple ways of delivering description. It's totally exciting. What I'm here to talk about is something that a lot of people a lot of amateurs who start describing things are going to run into situations where they go, well, how do I do this? How do I describe that? How do I know what to describe, what not to describe, what to say, and so forth? So we're going to go through here very quickly, and I'm always available and reachable for more extended questions later on. But this is an overview, if you will, of the basic principles of description and some good rules to keep in mind for video description specifically. So obviously, most of us at this point know what audio description is because we're inserting it's changing images into unbiased words. Basically, it's a quick, down and dirty way to describe it. And the purpose of it is to give access to the visual information that people don't get when they can't see the screen. I would add here that it might not only be for blind and visually impaired people, although it was created for us. We'll move right into the general principles of description. These are the result of 2 years of looking at every known guideline, standard, and rule for description that we can find in English, and rendering it down into what do all of the suggested guidelines and rules have in common. And that's how we arrived at these general principles. General principles of description apply to all types of description. If you're describing something live, if you're doing it for video, if you're describing a cruise ship or anything else. So we'll get right into them. The first general principle is describe what you see. And really, if you had to basically reduce the rules of description down to one, this would be it. Describe what's physically observable, like appearances, actions, not the things that are not physically. In other words, you can't see someone's motivation, you can't see their intention, you can't see their thought. So those wouldn't be the subject of video description or any kind of description, really. The second general principle is describe that which is most significant or essential in the allotted time that you have. This is an editing decision. It's always a challenge. People, you can't describe everything. You never have enough time. So you're going to have to make choices. What's most important? The third principle is do not inject personal interpretations or opinions. And examples of that might be do not explain what you think is going on. Don't explain people's moods or their motives or their reasoning for what they're doing in the video. That's all your personal interpretation, personal opinion. It's kind of condescending. Let the audience figure it out on their own based on the context. General principle 4, do not censor the material. I've seen examples where the material gets a little racy, a little too much sex, too much violence, too much whatever, and describers instinctively feel, we should, they're not going to want to hear about that, so let's tame this down. Blind folks don't need the material censored. Your job is just translate the images into words. General principle 5, do not summarize. Don't take a series of specific separate actions and reduce it down to just one thing. If you have a 2-minute fight scene, don't just say they fight. Spell it out. Give the details that you can in the time that you have. The sixth principle would be use the present tense. The story's unfolding right now. We know that this is what we're listening to. We're listening to a video that's playing, or we're watching a play that's occurring. So it's not he sat down and he whatever. Just use the present tense. General principle 7. Use the same name for characters, places, and objects throughout. That's actually pretty important when you're just trying to keep track of things visually on the screen only by listening. That once you call somebody their mother, then keep calling. Don't we have a tendency in English to want to use a different term all the time. Don't vary the term just for the sake of doing it. Try to keep it the same. So same object, same name, same person, same name. General principle number 8. Use definite and indefinite articles appropriately. When you first see something, call it a ball, a car, a blonde with a man with blonde hair. But then after that, use the. That way we know, the listener knows, this is the same one that you referred to before as opposed to another one. So now we get down to 7 rules for video description specifically. These are principles that apply to video description specifically and really don't always relate to other kinds of description. The first one is do not describe over dialogue. Josh explained that quite succinctly. It's pretty clear. It's the number 1 rule. Everyone agrees on it. Second one, do not describe obvious sound cues. You can mention who answers the phone, but don't mention that the phone's ringing. We can hear that. Recently had a producer of a program ask why we didn't, they complained that we didn't describe that someone spilled their beer. And the answer to the question was, well, that's because we can hear the beer fall, and you actually had a great sound effect of the foam on the table. It was awesome. The next one is do read verbatim words and subtitles that appear on the screen. That's the rule everyone agrees on. You got to, if there's text on the screen, a blind person is not going to know unless you read it. Next is do follow the action whenever possible. There's been a lot of discussions about, well, what is following and leading the action? What that means is, does your description come before it happens visually on the screen, or does it come after? If it's before, that's called leading the action, and if it comes after, it's called following. In general, though there's been a lot of discussion about it, if you will follow the action with your description, it gives the opportunity for the blind person to listen to the program, and perhaps they can determine what's going on by the sound effects or by the context, and your description confirms it. If not, they hear a sound, and then you explain what the sound is. If you lead the action and give your description before it's actually seen on screen or before the sound effect is heard, whatever the situation might be, one thing is that's really irritating to sighted people. Don't assume that blind people always watch these shows by themselves. Blind people watch videos with sighted people, and sighted people really, really hate when you describe something before it actually is seen. So whenever possible, follow the action. All right. The next one, we only have 3 more. The next one is do describe scene changes when they're not obvious from the audio. There's a tendency in description for people to, every single time the scene shifts, try to say now this and now that or whatever later or whatever, try to overemphasize the scene changes. Try to be sensitive to what you can actually hear in the program. And when you give the scene change, just give where it goes. You don't have to explain, oh, the scene is changing now. Just say, where are we now? Okay, next rule is do not refer to camera angles or the television screen. You don't need to say, and on the screen we know you're describing the screen. That's implicit. It's inferred. We already assumed that. And when you start describing camera angles, like, well, now we see a close-up shot of a man in a subject, it takes us outside of the story and puts us into the filmmaker, director's cut kind of a viewpoint, and it's distracting. By the way, it also adds too many words and just makes your description clunky. So no need to describe camera angles. Last one is do not give away secrets and surprises and sight gags. There's a temptation on the part of a lot of folks who try to describe to think that if you can't see the screen, you're not going to understand the story, and therefore I have to explain the story to you. Well, that's just simply not true. And some people can find that kind of condescending. I get kind of offended and turn off the description if it starts going toward that real, let me spoon-feed you the story. No, that's not necessary. In fact, it's kind of fun to figure it out on my own. So explain what you see, but, describe what you see, but don't explain why it's there or what it means or what the character is doing. Let the audience figure that out. So those are the general principles of description and the specific rules to keep in mind for video description. And the only other thing we have for you is some, resources, references, places where you can get more information. A lot of the stuff you can link to from the VDRDC website. There's the ACB site and the ACB's Audio Description Project, and the GBH has got information on their site, and I'm having trouble reading my list here on this note taker here. But if anybody wants those, I'm more than happy to email them to you. So I have a list of resources, and I can also email you the list of the principles and rules as we've reviewed them here. So thanks for taking time to listen to this. I hope you all have a really fun time describing videos, and let's watch the numbers build. Let's get a lot of description out there on the web.
Great, thanks, Rick. Have some questions here. First, from Amy Parker. She says, "Hi, this is a great presentation. Have some questions about audio files that have been created separately and how to upload or attach these to YouTube videos. Thanks for the great presentation." And Amy, we will definitely be covering that as the session progresses. Next, from Mike May. How might already described videos be hosted and made available as well? Josh, do you want to cover that one?
Sure. I think that basically the technology you describe is a demonstration of a more fundamental change in the way video description, I think, is going to be created and consumed in our cloud-based world. Basically, what we're doing is we're keeping descriptions separate from the original material, and very often what was done before is a new version of the same video was created with descriptions embedded in the audio track. So there were two versions to keep track of. So I think that part of the answer to Mike's question has to do with issues around licensing and distributing previously created described versions of things, but in some situations, we may be able to actually use this same underlying technology to take the audio files, the description files that were created by professional describers, upload those to our our cloud-based description repository, and then be able to synchronize those descriptions with the original video as it streams from a place like YouTube, or more likely someplace like Netflix or Amazon. So those are things that have the appropriate agreements need to be made, and really UDescribe is a way of just sort of putting a toe in the water, saying, hey, this is how description is going to be done in the future. You know, while I'm talking, before we go to the next question, I just wanted to add a little comment to Rick's awesome presentation, and just say that Rick mentioned a number of times, he said, if there's time, and I had talked about us using extended description instead of inline description for UDescribe. It's important to remember that even though you're using extended description, it is really important to keep the descriptions as concise as possible, because we want to get back to the original content. We're not, in general, description does not need to be voluminous and you know, it doesn't need to go on and on. And so it's important, even though you have as much time as you need, to keep it short. And finally, I just want to say one last thing about the platform. We've decided to set it up so that the description that we're using for this particular demonstration is extended description, not inline description. However, there's no reason why we can't also use inline description that is the more traditional approach, where it's just inserted between gaps in the dialogue and the important sound effects. So thanks for letting me squeeze those additional comments in there, Jason.
Great, thanks, Josh. Couple questions related to Rick's presentation. Jim Tobias asks, but facial expression should be described, right, if relevant?
Well, there is, again, a lot of discussion, and we're continuing to gather consumer opinion about this. I know more focus groups will be occurring at major conventions this summer, and there are a lot of sources of gathering this kind of information. We know that there are great differences of opinion, and a lot of them have been shown to be related to whether how a person became blind and how long they've been blind. But facial expressions, basically, there's some study being done about this, whether you can actually measure a facial expression and determine for sure what kind of emotion it conveys, which would give some legitimacy to a describer saying, describing a person's emotion. But in general, the danger of interpreting facial expressions is you ask 10 different sighted people to look at a person's face and say, is that person sad or happy or angry or frustrated or any number of things? You'll get different answers. So it's safer to stick to, well, what do you see? Do the corners of the mouth rise? Do they furrow their brows? Do they look down? Do they wrinkle their nose? And then let the blind person decide what that means.
And I'll jump in here. This is Josh. Rick and I have a very slightly different takes on this. Rick is a professional describer and really takes his craft very seriously. I'm more of a consumer of description and a creator of the technologies around it. And I believe that if a facial expression is relevant, you should describe it. And if it's more succinct to say he looks smug, then I think you should go ahead and say that. This is a topic of open debate among description professionals and consumers. So, Jim, you now have the answer in both directions.
Great, thanks. Two questions related to deaf-blind viewers. First comes from Amy Parker, who states, sometimes video description is happening for people who are deaf-blind. Was there any inclusion of this group in terms of coming up with principles for describing sounds? For example, sometimes our video description is also captioned to enable people who are deaf-blind to have access. And tied to that is Jim Tobias, who says, are deaf-blind people using video? If so, should description also be offered in text so that it can be combined with the captions?
Well, my response is that, and when we looked at description principles, we were looking exclusively at audio description that would be delivered in a verbal manner. So describing, coming up with ways for describing sound effects would have been irrelevant for what we looked at. But I think it's a fascinating topic, and I like Jim's idea of delivering description as text, and in which case you would have to come up with protocols for describing sounds.
So this is Josh. We have definitely considered the deafblind community as part of the group of stakeholders for video description. We've been in touch with a number of people as we sort of develop these tools, and certainly we are interested in providing improved access to everyone for video materials. I think that I'd actually like Jason to address this question. Jason is in a position to be able to sort of talk more authoritatively about how much deafblind folks might be consuming video.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of activity in the DCMP library serving students who are deafblind. In some of our informal testing, we've gotten mixed feedback regarding making the description available via captioning. Have the standard captioning, say, at the lower part of the screen, and the description at the upper part of the screen. The feedback we got was sometimes that was just a little bit sensory overload, but certainly as technology develops, being able to offer the description as text that could be read by a screen reader and not necessarily applied to the video may very well be a great option. Any more follow-up on that? Okay, great. Valerie has a question asking about the opinions on placing description on the action if possible, like in an ongoing fight scene.
Again, that's a great question, and automatically people that come to description fresh without any kind of background or history in it assume that that's what would be done, that you would put the description right where it occurs. We have a step in our professional production description here that where when that is possible, that is done. But you'd be surprised. I definitely more often than not, you're not in video description. You're really not able to place a description exactly where something occurs. So that's why we have to really focus on, are you going to lead or are you going to follow, because it's just rare that you can hit it dead on. Of course, because dialogue is in the way is what I mean.
Okay, great. I have a couple of questions that are going to be covered in future segments of the webinar. I think we will go ahead and proceed. The next segment is going to be a recorded demonstration by Owen Edwards, who is going to show the registration process on the UDescribe system.
Hi, I'm Owen Edwards. I'm a research engineer here at the Smith Kettlewell Video Description Research and Development Center. I'm going to take you through how to sign up for an account on UDescribe so that you can use it to create descriptions of YouTube videos. We need users to sign up for an account so that we can keep track of which description was created by which user, and in future we'll have ways to allow feedback so that when somebody hears a description, they can make suggestions on how that description could be improved. For example, adding some description at a certain point in the video, removing some descriptions that aren't clear, or changing the timing of when a description happens during the video. The sign-up process is very simple, and it just requires visiting a web page. So I'm opening Internet Explorer here. I'm going to go ahead and type in the address that we need to go to. It's www.udescribe.org/signup.php. The PHP extension is important. First of all, I'm going to create my own username. As it notes, no spaces. And also, remember whether you use capitals or lowercase, because it is important. I'm going to enter my name, Owen Edwards, and the number 1, and enter a password. Of course, I need to remember that password, and I need to enter it twice just to verify it. And then finally, I'm going to put in my email address. Part of this sign-up process requires you to receive an email from the system, and that verifies that you're a real user and that we'll be able to keep in touch with you in the future. So I'll put in my email address. And then just select Sign Up. If everything goes correctly, you'll see this message. You have signed up to provide audio descriptions. Please wait for a confirmation email, which will be sent to the address you gave. If you see any kind of error message there, go back to the sign up page and try it again. And if you continue to have problems, get in touch with us. Now I'm going to open up my email program. I'm using Gmail on the web here. And there's an email from DVX. You'll see a message from DVX. DVX is an underlying technology within UDescribe, so that's the message that we're expecting. If I click on that message, I'll see 2 links in it. They're actually the same link, and whichever one is clickable, or if necessary, copy the text out of that email and paste it into your browser. I'm just going to go ahead and click on one of them, and I'll see that message. Your account has been activated. Thank you. That means your account is now completely activated, and you can go back to UDescribe and sign in with that username. So let's try that. I can come back over here to Internet Explorer, create a new tab, and go to the main UDescribe page, www.udescribe.org. There, near the top left of the page, I'll see a link that says Login to create and edit descriptions. Click on that. Come over and enter that username that I just created the account with. Enter that password that I remember. And I can just click Login. It takes a moment to gather all the information from the system and the list of described clips. And there we are. A list of recently described videos, search box to allow us to search for videos that we want to describe, and up on the top left you'll see logged in as and my username.
Great, thanks, Owen. Doesn't look like we have any questions specifically related to the registration process, but have a couple of additional ones that we'll go ahead and throw out. And Josh, if you want to hold them for later segments, feel free to do so. For extended description, how frequently should description be inserted to avoid constantly pausing the video?
Yeah, thanks. I think that is really a question of aesthetics and how often you think you need to be popping in and out. If it's necessary to, if you're creating a video description for a student who will be expected to know the answers to certain stuff on the test or be able to write a report about it, I would say that it's fairly important to include as much description as you think is necessary. Again, keeping in mind that every time you do it, you're interrupting. So so do as much as you need to, but not more than you have to. And I'm sure Rick would weigh in on this as well. So Rick probably also has some comments.
One of the this is Rick. Really, what you need to ask yourself is it important to describe something right here? And there's two principles that you would use. One is, can a blind person follow what's going on in this program without description right here? Most of the time, I think the answer to that would be yes. So, might not need description because it may not be quote-unquote necessary. On the other hand, the second question to ask yourself is, would specific detail right here fill in something that sighted people know and might appreciate, and that a blind person, would definitely not know? We've shown clips to blind people and said, "Do you think this needs description? Do you understand what's going on?" They said, "No, we don't need description." And then we play the clip again and with description anyway, and they go, "Oh," and they hear some detail about that. Oh, yeah, that would have been. You don't really know if you need to description or not, because you don't know what interesting details there might be in the video. It is an aesthetic and it is a judgment call, but those are the two guiding questions. One is it necessary in order to follow the program? Two is, would it add some significant detail that the blind person would want to know?
Tricia Peters asks, if I add audio description using UDescribe, can I also keep a copy, or will it only reside on your cloud site?
That's a great question. Currently, it just resides on the cloud site, but you can always get to it from anywhere you want. It would certainly be possible for us to create a way for people to download a copy of all of their recordings, and if we hear that that's something that people want, we would certainly implement that.
Elizabeth asks, is there a specific checklist that you can go through after you have finished writing your script to make sure that you followed all the guidelines?
No, there isn't. And I want to sort of just comment on that a little bit. The whole idea of amateur description, and in fact the idea of description in general, there are no standards for description. There are only guidelines and suggestions, and they vary depending on the kind of material you are describing. You can get access to all of those sort of grueling details of the guidelines by going to various links on either the VDRDC website or the DCMP website. They are available. I would say, think of this, though, as uncharted territory. The thing that you're doing, we're telling you the basics of how to do it. And I think that you should think of it sort of like a Wikipedia article. Don't not go ahead and do it because you're afraid you're going to do it wrong. It's better to do it and be able to come back to it and make changes and modifications than to not do it at all. And don't get too caught up in what the guidelines and the the non-standards would have you do.
Olson asks, when a person signs in, do they have access to YouTube videos that other people have added audio description to, or only those that the person has done themselves?
It's Josh again. You can access them and you can record your own descriptions, but you cannot edit other people's descriptions. If there are multiple descriptions, and I show this, I'm going to show this a little bit later, a viewer can choose which description they want to view, whether it's describer number 1 or describer number 2, but those two describers cannot change each other's descriptions.
Great. Next question. Can you edit and make corrections to your description before uploading it?
Currently, each description clip that you record is uploaded immediately. You can delete it and re-record it if you don't like it, but it all sort of goes live right away. We have not seen that that's a real problem. We've talked about whether or not there's whether or not we should put in a publish button to let people sort of keep a bunch of private descriptions until they're ready to release it to the world. But to keep the interface simple, we just have everything going up as you record it.
Great, and this is a comment connected to the question about the download capability. For museums, being able to keep a copy of their content is really important. I think it's essential to potential museum clients to be able to download their audio description content from your platform to store and use elsewhere. So that was a general comment.
Great, thank you, and we will definitely talk more about that.
Great. Now we are going to move into a segment by Ting Su, who is going to demonstrate the process for recording descriptions with Udescribe.
I love the Marcel the Shell YouTube videos, so I decided to describe the second installment of Marcel today. First, I need to go to the Udescribe site at udescribe.ski.org. I see that if I click the first link that says Play Described YouTube Videos, I can view videos that have already been described. I can do this without logging in. However, I'll need to log in to actually create a new description for a video. I'm going to click on the second link called Log In to Create and Edit Descriptions. Conveniently, my name and password are saved in the field boxes from the last time I logged in, so I'll just click Log In. Okay, so immediately there is a list of the most recently described videos. It's organized in several columns, so I can see that there's a column of the video, and then the next column over allows me to create or edit this descriptions for that video, and in the next column it lists the author of that video. Since I want to describe a new video, I will go to the search field and type in as much of the title of the video as I can remember. Marcel the Shell. I'm going to click search. And I can see that in the search results, videos with pre-existing descriptions are going to show up first. However, I don't want the video that's already been described. I want to describe a new video. Here it is, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On 2. In order to create or edit the description, I will click on this link that says Create and Edit Descriptions. So prior to logging into Udescribe, and in preparation to describe this video, I prepared a script already. So I already previewed the video, and as I was watching the video, I opened up a Word document and just typed out the script for what I think I'll say in my descriptions. So now you can see I have two windows open on my computer. I have the Udescribe open in my internet window, and then I have a second window open that has my Word document in it, which is the script that I will use for my description. So in order to start describing, we are going to press play, and when we get to a point in the video that I would like to describe, I'm just going to click pause, and then I can hit the record button to insert my description. Ready? Here we go. Marcel stands on an open book. Oh, so sometimes the first time you describe, you might get a pop-up window from Adobe Flash asking, allow udescribe.ski.org to access your camera and microphone, and you should always click allow, and then you can close the window. We'll have to check back later to see if that description got inserted properly. Okay, let's continue.
I'm sorry. I'm actually really out of breath right now.
Why are you so tired?
Well, in all honesty, I had to walk all the way here from the water bottle.
I thought you said you had a car.
I do, but it wasn't available to me.
I'm getting ready to hit the pause button so I can pause when I want to insert my description. Okay, I just clicked play pause because I want to insert my next description. I'm going to click record and then start speaking my description. Marcel the shell with shoes on. Marcel is a hermit crab shell with one eye in the opening of the shell and pink sneakers. Marcel is on the corner of a table next to a window. On the table is an open notebook and 2 plants. Okay, I've clicked stopped because I'm finished with that description, and now I'll click upload to upload the clip. Great, I can see it appear over here in this window. Okay, let's continue the video. Click play.
If you do drive a bug, you have to be pretty easy going because you're only going to get to go where the bug wants to go. One week there was a maple sugar syrup spill in the kitchen, and every time I would ride the bug out, no matter where I wanted to go, I would just end up back at the kitchen. Really, what you just have to want to do is take a ride.
Do you ever read the newspaper?
We don't have a newspaper, but sometimes I'll just read a receipt. I like that because I like to get a feel for daily life. Guess what?
So originally I had written a description for that scene that said, moving among a stack of old newspapers. But I realized that description actually doesn't add anything to understanding what's happening in the video, or it doesn't make his jokes any funnier. So I think I'm gonna just skip that description and move ahead to the next one. Okay, I'm gonna click to continue the video.
What my bed is? A piece of bread. Guess one time I went to a hotel.
Okay, now this scene I definitely do want to describe, so I'm going to just back up the video a little bit until it reaches the point where I want to insert my description.
I like to get a feel for daily life. Guess what my bed is? A piece of bread.
Okay, here's where I want to insert it. I'll click record. A bedroom is set up on the soil of a large potted plant. The bed is made of 2 slices of bread, the nightstand, a small jar, and there is a baseball card on the stem of the plant, like a poster on the wall. Okay, I clicked stop, and I'll click upload to upload that. Great. Let's play to continue.
Guess what I want, but I'm not gonna beg for it.
What?
A nickname. Because you can't make it for yourself. Like, you can make yourself a new hairstyle, but you can't say, well, now, I go by the name of the General or whatever.
If you could have a nickname, what would it be?
Ace.
What if you had a pen name?
I would call myself Sheldon Conk.
So again, I don't think we need this description that says, standing on an orange in a fruit bowl, because it doesn't really add anything to his joke. However, I do want to describe the next scene. I'll click record. On the page of an open book, facing away from the spine and mimicking a run. Okay, we'll stop and then upload again. Okay, let's continue playing the video.
Do you want to see me try to turn the page?
Yeah, sure.
Read on. I used to have...
Oh, so I do want to describe this scene because I know that later in the video we will return to this scene and it will be a crucial element to one of his lines. So I'm just going to back the video up again a little bit.
the page?
Yeah, sure.
Read on.
Okay, great. This is where I want the description. I'll click record. On the keyboard of a MacBook, a blank document is visible on the screen. Stop, and now I'll upload that. Okay, and let's do one more description.
I used to have a sister. Yeah.
What happened there?
Someone asked her to hold a balloon.
Okay, I realize where I paused, it cut off just the beginning of his words. So I'm going to nudge it back just a little bit so we can pause it right before he starts speaking.
To hold a balloon.
Okay, well, I want to make sure that's the right place. Okay, there we go. Record. On the couch next to a sleeping poodle. Uploading. So at this point, I think I want to go back and check the video and make sure my descriptions are in there as I want, and just to make sure everything is going all right so far. Okay, so here we go. This is back to the list of the search results when I typed in Marcel the Shell. I see that Marcel the Shell with shoes on is number 2 in my search result. So before, when we wanted to create the description, I clicked on the link that said Create Edit Descriptions. Now that I just want to view the described video, I'm going to click on the actual link to the video. Here we go.
I'm sorry. I'm actually really out of breath right now.
Why are you so tired?
Well, in all honesty, I had to walk all the way here from the water
I
bottle.
remember the first description was around 30 seconds, so I'm just going to fast forward a little.
It wasn't. What? I'm sorry. Could I have a drip of water?
Marcel the Shell with shoes on. Marcel is a hermit crab shell with one eye in the opening of the shell and pink skin. Great. I'm just pausing the video there because I can hear my description. It definitely came in where I recorded it, but I realized that my first description that I made did not get recorded. So I'm going to go back to the edit descriptions and just add that description in. So to do that, I'm going to click close. I'm back to the search results screen, and I'm going to click Create Edit Descriptions. And I'm just going to bring up my script from my Word document again, which I've got in the window over here. So now I have my two windows side by side again. I have View Describe on the left and my Word document on my right. Yes, so my first description, I wanted to let the viewer know that Marcel is standing on an open book in the first scene. So I'm just going to go back to this video and add that description in. I see that when I click to create and edit a description, it automatically starts the video from the very beginning. So I'm just going to click play. Okay, and I think I actually want to add my description before Marcel even starts talking so that the scene is set up. So I'm going to put this back at the beginning and click pause immediately. Okay, now that it's paused, I can record my first description. Here we go. Marcel stands on an open book. Okay, I click stop because that's it, and I'm going to upload that. Great. I see that since I started my description at 0 seconds in the video, it automatically puts my description at the beginning before all my other descriptions. Great, so now let's go back and check it and see if it's the way I want. I'm just hitting my back button again. And here's the link, Marcel the Shell with Shoes on 2. Okay, the video is loading. Marcel stands on an open book. Okay, excellent. It looks like that went in. Great, and I'll upload that. And that's it. We just described a 4-minute video. If I want to check, remember I can go back to the main page, the youdescribe.ski.org page. And there it is. That's it.
Great. Thanks so much for that demonstration. Doesn't look like we have any questions yet specifically connected to recording, so I'm going to jump back to a few of the other general questions that we've received. Mike May asks, is there a time limit for each description in order to encourage brevity?
It's Josh. Thanks, by the way, Ting. That was awesome. I had never watched Marcel the Shell before, but my kids certainly did, and I was just like, okay, that's great. And to get my kids to do decent description was difficult, but Ting does a much better job, and now I actually really love Marcel. There is no time limit. There is no actual time limit imposed by UDescribe or by the underlying technology. Of course, shorter is better.
Great. Larry Goldberg asks, do you think adherence to guidelines is more important when encountering the large quantity of educational material in YouTube?
I think that adherence to the guidelines is really great if you can do it. If you have the time to go through the guidelines and really understand them, then that's wonderful. And a bunch of really, really smart and dedicated people have created those guidelines so that description can be as high quality and useful as possible. However, many of us have much more, it shouldn't stop people from adding descriptions because you haven't consumed the guidelines. We've given you the basics here today. You can review those basics on our website or by listening to the webinar again at some point. Those really encapsulate a lot of the important stuff from the guidelines. If you want to get into it and become a contributor of a lot of high-quality description materials for YouTube, then I think that understanding the guidelines would be really helpful to you and also to the people consuming your description. In other words, the guidelines are wonderful, and if you can, you should follow them. But if you don't have time to go through all the guidelines, please don't let that be a barrier to creating description that can help people in the meantime.
Laura Hall asks, are users able to listen to the audio description before you may be finished, or is it locked for editing?
It is not locked for editing. People can listen to it actually while you're doing it, if that happens to overlap. Again, that's something that we have talked about changing, but up till now it hasn't really been a problem.
Question via email, could existing description be repurposed by uploading existing audio files and entering them into the corresponding time codes?
It could. We don't have tools for people to do that right now, and it's unlikely that that descriptions have been created already for stuff that's on YouTube. But if it has, then that could be done. The technology or the software for doing that is not yet available.
Great. We're going to go ahead and proceed on to the next segment, which is going to be a video by Josh, who will show us how to play descriptions with UDescribe.
Hi, this is Josh again, and I'm going to demonstrate how to play videos that have been described using UDescribe. I'm going to show not only how to find the videos, but also how to fast forward, rewind, pause, stop, and all of the other things that you would normally want to do if you're watching a video. We're here at the front page of the UDescribe website. It gives us the opportunity either to log in or to view described videos from YouTube. We're just gonna play described videos. We don't need to log in if we just want to watch. So what we're going to see when this comes up is a list of the most recently described videos. So here they are. You'll notice, by the way, that I'm using a screen reader. It's not intended that you be able to understand it. It's just for me so that I can use UDescribe, and also to demonstrate that, in fact, this website is designed to be used with a screen reader or other access technology. So I am, in fact, not looking at the screen as I do this. I can't see. So this is all exactly as it would be done by a blind person. So what we have here is a list of recently described videos. I'm going to find, so here's a video. What we have is basically a thumbnail, the title of the video, and the name of the describer who described the video. Some of these are described by multiple describers, and that's one of the things I'm going to be showing you. So here's the perception video that is described by Owen. I'm going to hit the link just by clicking on the title of the video, and it'll start playing along with the descriptions.
A HeLa Science video. Perception.
So that's Owen's voice doing that description as we go. And
an outdoor scene. In front of a large bush, a thick black outline changes between different geometric shapes, including a six-pointed star. It's hard to tell what's creating
if I hit
this outline.
So I'm going to hit Alt-P for pause. If I hit Alt-P again, it'll resume.
The human mind has developed an amazing...
Okay. If I hit Alt-F, it will fast forward. If I hit Alt-R, it will rewind. If I hit Alt-S, it will stop and reset to the beginning of the video. I'll do that now. I'm going to hit Alt-S. So now it's stopped. The other thing that I want to point out is this menu, this drop-down menu, that actually lets me choose which of the describers, because there are actually 3 descriptions available for this, and they're all different. The one that we just heard was Owen doing the description, but we also have Keith, and we also have Just Describe. So what if we choose Just Describe? Let's see what that description sounds like. So I'll now, instead of hitting the Alt-P, I'm going to just tab over to the play pause button, and I'm just going to hit it. And now it's playing, and we're going to hear Just Describe's video descriptions instead of Owen.
A HeLa Science video. Perception. The geometric outline of a six-pointed star rhythmically expands and contracts against a background of green foliage.
I'm going to hit Alt-P to pause. I want you to note that when these descriptions play, it pauses the video and plays the description, then resumes the video again afterwards. That's called extended description, and all of the descriptions that we do, as I pointed out earlier, are extended, and that makes it a lot easier for teachers and parents to describe stuff, especially when there's not much time. So this has been a very quick description and illustration of how to play back videos using UDescribe, but I think that you'll agree that it's quite simple, and that it shouldn't be difficult for anybody to be able to play back these videos.
Great, thanks, Josh. Question from Victoria Morgan. What kind of microphone do you use for recording? Will a moderately priced one, say from Radio Shack, be good enough?
Can you hear me? I just want to make sure I'm not muted.
Yes.
Okay. So, in fact, I was using a cheap, I think it was $15 or $20 USB headset from Radio Shack to record those descriptions. You can use any microphone that will work with your computer. Will work with UDescribe.
Martin Wild asks, you said you couldn't edit the recordings, but can I re-record it before I hit upload?
Yes, I believe so. I think that if you hit record and then stop and you decide that you don't like what you've recorded, I believe hitting record will overwrite the prior recording, but I'm not 100% sure. At the very worst, you hit upload and then hit delete as soon as it shows up and record again.
Great. Next, we're going to go back to Owen for a demonstration on embedding described YouTube videos from UDescribe.
This is Owen again. So once you've created a description of a video and you want to share that description with other people, with students or friends, with anybody who needs a video with description, then you can just go ahead on that playback page that Josh was describing, click on the share button, and it'll open up a text box underneath which contains a direct link to the video and the description that's created on the UDescribe system. You can just click on that text, it'll select all of it, copy it, which is Control-C or Apple-C on a Mac, and open a new tab, paste that in, that's Control-V or Apple-V, and you'll see that it plays the video directly in a new tab.
A Gila science video. Perception.
So that way, anybody else who wants that video with description, you can provide them with a link that allows them to do the playback without having to go through the UDescribe site to search for and find the description of that video. Another thing I can do is email them that link, so I'm going to go ahead and open my Gmail account, whatever email program you use. Just go ahead and create an email, here's one I started earlier, and just paste in that link to the video. So I can email that link to somebody, and when they click on the link, it'll pop up a window that has the playback with the description associated with the video. One other thing to notice is, as Josh mentioned, it's possible with UDescribe to have more than one description of the same video. In fact, for this perception video, we have 3 different descriptions from 3 different people. There's one from Owen, one from Keith, and one from Just Describe. That link that we share is associated with just one of those descriptions, not all 3. We specifically want to be able to share a description of a video rather than all the descriptions of this video, so that we can say this is the one that you should be consuming, this is the one you should be studying, this is the one you should be watching it with. So although in this playback window within UDescribe there is that pull-down box with 3 different options, if I go to that other tab where I opened the link that I'm sharing, you'll see that that box is grayed out, that Just Describe is the only option, and the box is grayed out. I don't have that option to switch between them. So as I say, we're specifically linking into one description by one person of this video. A couple of other small points to notice. As it mentions in the text underneath the window when you get the option to share the link, there are a couple of parameters in that address that you copy. One is the width, a W, and the other one's a height, H value, that you can change to change the size of the video when it's displayed in that by clicking on the link, so whether it's pasting it into another window or following it from an email. You don't need to change those values, but you can if you need to make the video larger, if you need to make the video smaller, or if you want to embed it into a web page. Other than that, it's a very simple mechanism to copy a link directly to a described video and share it with anybody who needs a video with description. Once you've created it through the UDescribe system, your friends, your students don't need to come into the UDescribe system. They can just follow a link that you can provide to them directly, very simply with that share button.
Responding to the question about re-recording before hitting submit, and she says, yes, you can. I have done that. So that seems to be a definitive answer on that one. Another question is there a way to determine the overall duration with description added of the YouTube video? It would be nice to know going in how long the video is to make sure there's enough class time to finish.
Yes, that's an excellent suggestion. There's currently no way to do that. Awesome idea. We will look into that, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to. So thanks for the comment.
Next question: is there a list of preferred videos that people have requested descriptions for?
Another great question. We've talked about that a lot. We would like to set up a system by which a blind user can request, can sort of set up a wish list for descriptions. That's not there yet, but stay tuned. This is an active construction site. Keep your hard hat on.
Great. Next question: can you embed the audio described video into a web page using a WordPress plugin for YouTube videos?
I don't have the answer to that. I think probably you can, but I don't know exactly how. We will certainly, you can include the link on a WordPress page. I don't know if we can currently embed a web page, but we are certainly we will certainly be able to do that shortly, if not right now.
Next question: do the shortcut keys mentioned previously work in all browsers, specifically when the URL of the video is shared?
I can't guarantee that it works in all browsers, but it uses the standard shortcut mechanism. So if your access technology and your browser combination allow the keystrokes through to the application, it should work in any browser.
Great. Next, we're going to move to a presentation by Marianne Siller, who is going to talk about how teachers can use UDescribe in the classroom. Marianne?
Yes. Hello, my name is Marianne Siller, and I'm a teacher of children with visual impairments and a Video Description Research and Development Center stakeholder. I reside in Dallas, Texas, and I welcome your ideas about increasing the connection between video description technologies and the school experience. You may contact me at 214-448-6068 and at dmasiller@sbcglobal.net. Slide 39, the title is UDescribe, Connect to the Classroom. I feel there's a real value in a video description mindset in the classroom that even the busiest of teachers will want to adopt. So on this slide, there are 4 points I want to mention. The first point: imagine what targeted instruction may become when video description is intentionally planned and included in lessons. Lesson planning, instruction, and progress monitoring are key pieces of teaching, and I believe UDescribe will fit well in any of these type of lessons. The second point: UDescribe will support multiple ways that students may be motivated and engaged in the lesson, and students will find new creative expressions during daily instruction. The third point about the video description mindset is that it supports the natural connection to what is already being done in the classroom that can help diversify instruction for all students. Finding the creative edge that brings together knowledge, learning, and enjoyment, this is what should be part of the school experience. And the fourth point: UDescribe technology, where we put it to use in the classroom, is about raising our own awareness and turning up our reflective skills as teachers and administrators so we become accustomed to thinking about how lessons align with the needs of diverse learners. The next slide is titled Targeted Instruction and the Expanded Core Curriculum. For students who are blind or have low vision, they must be exposed to and learn an additional set of disability-specific skills, what we call the Expanded Core Curriculum, or the ECC. The ECC incorporates 9 skill sets that children with visual impairments can't learn incidentally and must get from quality, consistent instruction. On the next slide, identify the names of the 9 skill areas of the ECC. The first is compensatory skills, which are those skills that students need to access all areas of the general education curriculum, such as tactile graphics and the communication modes, such as Braille. Then we have orientation and mobility, social interaction, independent living, recreation and leisure, career education, use of technology and assistive technology, and self-determination. The creative use of UDescribe with the ECC's 9 areas is a perfect fit for the classroom instruction. Students can become motivated learners as a result of multiple means of creative expression. As you reflect about what UDescribe is, can't you imagine what more might be accomplished to engage students when video description is intentionally planned and included in teachers' ECC lesson plans? To learn more about the ECC resources in the classroom and how to use that with UDescribe, go to tsbvi.edu and look at the RECC logo on the left panel of the main page. That's the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And you will see an amazing resource that's free called the REC, or what we call Resources for the Expanded Core Curriculum, that will give you multiple ideas of how to use your creative style and in lessons with UDescribe. The next slide is 42 and 43 area. I want to talk a little bit more about tips and resources to bring description into the classroom and community. I feel there must be a targeted effort to provide ongoing professional development for teachers and parents about the impact of video description in the classroom and community and the various resources available. We know from a recent study that there is a significant relationship to the correlation between a teacher of students with visual impairments' knowledge of video description and described multimedia content and the recommendation of their use in the classroom. This research note came from Lori Johnson's recent dissertation study called Perceptions of U.S. Teachers of the Visually Impaired on Commercially Produced Described Video within Educational Multimedia. You may also access UDescribe and take part in the archived webinars that you've heard about for the past 2 years and about video description in the classroom specifically at bdrdc.org. You may access also 4,000 plus described and captioned multimedia curricula that are free and access the DCMP's one-page tip sheet about description techniques at dcmp.org. Also, I want to suggest connecting to the ACB Description Project, which you've heard in this earlier set with Rick, but that's also at acb.org. Be creative. Let's empower students to learn and to lead their way with access technologies. Help them develop student-led, meaningful, and relevant curricula with multimedia access. Always maintain that focus on the student, not on the task. And don't forget to fit the program to the student, individualize. And really, the most important of all is to have fun. Enjoy these new technologies with your lessons. And the last slide in my series is for ongoing and lasting impact with video description in the classroom. The application of the UDescribe technology to the curricula, it is really not about making the time to fit it in, as it is about strategic thinking and our planning with all our students in mind.
Great. Thanks so much, Mary Ann. A couple of questions have come in. First one is, are there plans for inline and expanded description capabilities for the same video?
Yes, absolutely. We are going to be adding a in the creation section of the UDescribe website where you hit record and upload like that. There's also going to be a checkbox that says whether or not you want it inline or extended. Currently, we don't have that, but that is one of the things we're going to be adding shortly.
Great. And a comment from Tricia Peters said, K-12 schools do not always have consistent internet access. That is why I would like to be able to keep a local copy of the video with the extended description. Teachers need to know that the video used in learning is available when needed. Thanks so much for this tool.
Yeah, I mean, you get into, YouTube does not, YouTube obviously is not designed to let you keep copies of YouTube videos. I think that it's, sort of an intellectual property thing, and I don't know. I'm not recommending getting around that in any way, but obviously we've just used a bunch of we've just shown you a bunch of videos. We used Camtasia to record these demonstrations. I'm sure that similar technologies could be used to help get these described materials into schools where internet connections are spotty. I'm sure there are better techniques as well. So, but I don't actually have information about that.
Great. We have a participant who missed Mary Ann's contact info. Mary Ann, can you please repeat that information?
Sure, be glad to. It's DMA Siller, SILLER, at sbcglobal.net, or my phone is 214-448-6068.
Great. This is Jason again. As I said, I'm the director of the Described and Captioned Media Program, and wanted to talk just a few minutes about the resources that DCMP offers. We are a free source of described educational media. We are also a grant which is funded by the U.S. Department of Education. Our service, there are no fees for membership or use. As Mary Ann hinted at, we have over 4,000 accessible media educational items in our collection, and these are for classrooms teaching early learning and grades kindergarten through 12. Titles are available instantly via streaming or also available to be mailed to members in DVD format. The features of DCMP educational media, they are selected after research of national curricular priorities and user input. They are formally evaluated by teachers and have high-quality accessibility features which have been proofed and edited for accuracy. We offer an online catalog which allows members to browse by topic or perform a keyword search, and lesson guides are available for a large number of titles. You can connect with the DCMP via our website, which is dcmp.org. And as has already been mentioned, DCMP does have its own set of description standards for educational media, and those can be found at descriptionkey.org. And as a follow-up, and a couple of comments have come in, the webinar, we will be sending out a link to a webinar evaluation survey. It's very important that you fill that out. That will give us feedback and ways to improve future sessions. In addition, CEU credit is available. Once you complete that survey, there's a question, I believe it's question 2, that asks if you're interested in that credit. Once we confirm that you've submitted your evaluation and also confirmed that your attendance that you attended the webinar session, we will email a certificate to you. Josh, do you have any follow-up ending questions or comments?
My only comment is that I really appreciate everyone's sort of input to this process. The partners that we've been working with, all the members of the Description Leadership Network, which includes a number of extremely important and collaborative organizations. You can find out more about the Description Leadership Network and our partners at vdrdc.org/DLN. That's Description Leadership Network. So we just are incredibly appreciative of all of the help that Jason and Mary Ann and the folks at the Accessible Planet have given us in putting together this particular webinar. Finally, I just want to say that we showed you a couple of different ways of getting to UDescribe. We weren't entirely consistent in the URL that we were using. Some of you might have noticed. The easiest way to get to it is just udescribe.org. You could also get to it by going to udescribe.ski.org, but udescribe.org is probably the most direct way to get to the resources that we've been talking about today. I just want to say thanks to everybody who's participated. Thanks to the Department of Education for funding this awesome webinar series and the activities of the VDRDC, and thank you, Jason and DCMP, for hosting it.
Funding for the VDRDC in this webinar was provided by the U.S. Department of Education under grant number H327J110005. However, the contents of this webinar do not necessarily represent the policy of the U.S. Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government.